Once upon a time, in a quiet little neighborhood where flowers bloomed and everyone knew each other's business, lived a young woman named Amuche. She was the kind of woman who made people stop and stare, not just because of her smooth skin or her eyes that sparkled like stars, but because she carried herself like a queen. She was barely 22 but already married to a well-respected man named Patrick. Their wedding had shut down the whole street. People said she was the luckiest girl in town, young, beautiful, and married to a rich husband who adored her. Patrick was a gentleman, tall and confident, with a smile that made people trust him immediately. He gave Amuche everything: money, clothes, gifts, and more money. Amuche didn't lack anything. Her wardrobe was full of expensive perfumes, her nails were always done, and her hair was always perfect. She loved taking pictures, posting online, and reminding the world how sweet married life could be. But even sugar can turn bitter if you don't watch it closely. One cold morning, Amuche woke up and stretched lazily on their king-size bed. The curtains danced slowly with the wind, the birds chirped outside, and everything felt normal. Until she noticed something. A strange smell. It wasn't the usual morning breath or body odor. No. This one was sharp, foul, and powerful. It crept into her nose like smoke from a burning tire. Confused, she sniffed the air and looked around. The room looked clean. No food. No trash. But the smell stayed. She stood up slowly and moved toward the bathroom, thinking maybe she had stepped on something. But as soon as she sat on the toilet seat, she froze. Her eyes widened. The smell was coming from her. From down there. Her hands trembled. She sniffed again just to be sure. It was terrible. Like something had died inside her body. Panic washed over her like ice water. She bathed quickly, scrubbing her skin like it was a crime scene. She sprayed perfume, poured Dettol into the bathwater, even used her husband's cologne. But nothing helped. The smell refused to go away. She didn't want Patrick to notice, so she sat far from him during breakfast. But Patrick was not stupid. He kept sniffing and twisting his nose. "What's that smell?" he asked finally, looking around. Amuche shook her head quickly. "I don't know," she said, her voice shaking. Patrick stood up and walked around the house, sniffing corners like a police dog. He checked the kitchen. Nothing. He opened the fridge. Nothing. He even checked the garbage bin. Still nothing. But when he passed close to Amuche again, his face changed. He stopped. Took 2 steps back. Looked at her strangely. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away. That night, Amuche couldn't sleep. She kept checking herself. She even Googled it. "Rotten smell from private part," she typed in fear. The results only scared her more. Infections. Diseases. Dead tissues. Spiritual attacks. Her mind was boiling. Was this a sickness? Or was someone doing this to her from the village? By morning, Patrick had changed. He didn't touch her. He didn't smile. He didn't even greet her. He just stared at her like she was a stranger in his house. Amuche tried to explain. She cried. She begged. But Patrick was already disgusted. He told her to pack her things. She thought it was a joke. Until he actually threw her bag out. Just like that, the woman everyone admired became the woman nobody wanted to sit near. She ran to her mother's house in the village in tears, but her mother was shocked too. She tried to help. Took her to different clinics. Every doctor they met scratched their head in confusion. No infection. No STI. Nothing. All tests were clean. Yet the smell remained. And worse, it was getting stronger. People started whispering. "That woman is cursed," they said. "Maybe she slept with someone she shouldn't have." Others said it was spiritual. "This is not natural," her aunt said. "She needs deliverance, not medicine." So they took her to prayer houses. One prophet sprinkled holy water on her and fainted from the smell. Another screamed that her womb was carrying the spirit of a corpse. Amuche was confused. She hadn't cheated. She hadn't done anything wrong. Why was this happening to her? Her friends stopped picking her calls. Even her best friend Keru told her to never contact or come close to her again. Her neighbors began avoiding her. Even her mother started locking her bedroom door at night. Amuche became lonely, broken, angry. She stopped bathing, stopped eating. Her body began to smell even more. Her once glowing skin became dull. Her laughter disappeared. The woman who once turned heads now made people cover their noses. Then one night, something strange happened. Amuche was lying on the floor, crying silently, when she heard a knock. It wasn't loud. Just one soft knock. She didn't answer. She was too tired. Then the door creaked open slowly. A cold wind entered the room. She sat up suddenly. There was nobody there. But the room felt different. Heavier. Darker. That's when she saw it. A figure standing in the corner. A woman in a long black wrapper, her face hidden under a red scarf. Her feet didn't touch the ground. Her hands were covered in ashes. Amuche opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came. The woman pointed at her belly. Then slowly lifted one finger to her lips, as if to say, "Shoo." Amuche blinked once. The woman was gone. But her heart was racing. Her whole body was shaking. From that night, the smell got worse. And that was just the beginning. The next morning, Amuche woke up with her heart pounding and her skin soaked in sweat. Her mouth was dry, and her whole body felt like it had been dragged through a war. The smell had now taken over everything: her clothes, her bed, the walls, even the air in her lungs. She couldn't breathe without gagging. She stood up and looked at herself in the mirror. What she saw wasn't the beautiful Amuche the world once praised. Her eyes were sunken, her lips dry, and her once smooth skin was now patchy and dull. Her hands trembled as she touched her face. Who was this stranger looking back at her? She turned away and rushed out of the room, needing air, needing space. But as soon as she stepped into the living room, her mother jumped from the chair, covered her nose with her wrapper, and pointed to the door without saying a word. Amuche knew what it meant. Her own mother couldn't stand her anymore. With tears in her eyes and nothing but the clothes on her back, she stepped out into the street. The sun was blazing, the ground hot beneath her bare feet. People passing by stared at her, some covered their noses, others whispered and crossed to the other side of the road. Children pointed and laughed. "It's the corpse lady," one shouted. Amuche kept walking, each step heavier than the last. Her heart was shattering piece by piece. She didn't know where she was going until she found herself standing in front of a small, old church at the edge of town. The gate was open. The compound was quiet. Slowly, she stepped inside and sat on one of the stone benches under a tree. She didn't pray. She didn't cry. She just sat there, broken. After what felt like hours, an old woman walked toward her. She was tiny, wearing a faded white blouse and a wrapper that had seen better days. Her eyes were clear, and her voice was soft like a lullaby. "My daughter," the woman said gently, "you are not alone." Amuche looked up, confused. It was Mama Keji, an old widow who knew things others didn't. The old woman sat beside her, completely unbothered by the smell. She reached into her bag and brought out a small black clay pot, sealed with red wax and wrapped in palm leaves. She handed it to Amuche. "Take this," she said, "but do not open it until midnight. Go to a river, one that has never dried. Open it, pour it into the water, and say your name 3 times." Amuche wanted to ask questions. She wanted to understand. But she was too tired, too broken to talk or argue. She simply nodded and took the pot. The woman smiled and stood up, patting her shoulder. "Not everything that stinks is death," she whispered. "Sometimes it is rebirth." Then she walked away, disappearing behind the chapel like mist. That night, Amuche wandered through the town until she found the river that ran behind the cemetery. It was silent. Still. Surrounded by tall grass and palm trees that danced in the moonlight. She looked around. There was no one. She stepped into the water, shivering as the cold bit into her bones. She opened the pot. A thick, black liquid oozed out, smelling 10 times worse than anything she had ever experienced. It stung her eyes, her nose, even her thoughts. But she didn't scream. She poured it into the river and whispered her name 3 times, just like the woman told her. "Amuche. Amuche. Amuche." The moment the last syllable left her lips, the river bubbled violently. The air turned cold. The wind howled. Then from inside the water, a voice echoed, not loud, but clear. "You opened the door, now you must close it." Before she could understand what that meant, her legs went weak. Her body fell into the water. But instead of sinking, she floated, then darkness swallowed her. When she opened her eyes, it was morning. She was lying on dry ground. Her clothes were soaked, but something was different. The air smelled fresh and clean like fresh roses. She sniffed her arm, nothing. She checked her body, clean. For the first time in days, there was no smell. No rot. No stench. She ran her fingers through her hair and laughed out loud. It was gone. The curse was gone. But just as she stood up to leave, she noticed something strange. Her reflection. In the river, her face was smiling back at her, but it wasn't the same. The smile was too wide. The eyes too sharp. And the reflection didn't blink when she did. She stepped back slowly. The river went still. And deep down, she felt it. The smell was gone, but something else had taken its place. Amuche stood by the riverbank, frozen. Her chest rose and fell as she stared into the still water. That face, her face, was no longer hers. The reflection was too calm, too perfect, like it had been carved from wax and placed beneath the surface. The eyes didn't blink, didn't follow her movements. They just stared, cold and full of secrets. She stepped back slowly, her feet crunching the grass, her heart pounding like a drum. Something had shifted. Yes, the smell was gone. Her body felt lighter. Her skin clear. But deep inside her chest, a heaviness had taken root. Like she had left something behind, or something had entered her. She didn't go home immediately. She couldn't. She needed answers. Her mind kept replaying the old woman's words, "You opened the door, now you must close it." What door? What did she open? Was it the clay pot? The river? Herself? She wandered through the streets like a ghost, past curious eyes and whispering mouths. But unlike before, people no longer turned away in disgust. Some even greeted her. One woman selling akra smiled and called her beautiful. That made Amuche's stomach twist. She didn't feel beautiful. She felt borrowed. Like her body was hers, but her soul belonged to someone else now. When she finally reached her mother's house, she stood at the door for a long time. Her hand rested on the handle, but she didn't open it. She didn't want to go in. She wasn't ready to face anyone. She turned and walked away again, this time heading toward a small kiosk near the end of the street owned by the kind old woman, Mama Keji. As Amuche approached, Mama Keji looked up from her bench, her wrinkled face still and serious. "You've returned," she said quietly. Amuche nodded slowly. "You went to the river, didn't you? How did it go?" Amuche told her everything that happened. Mama Keji sighed and stood up. She walked into her kiosk, brought out a small calabash covered in red cloth, and placed it gently on the table. "Sit down, child," she said. "We need to talk." Amuche sat, her legs weak. "There are rivers you bathe in to cleanse," Mama Keji said. "And there are rivers you enter to bargain. You went to the second." Amuche's hands trembled. "I just wanted to stop the smell," she whispered. "And you did," Mama Keji replied. "But nothing in this world is free, my daughter. That river gave you back your beauty, but it took something too." Amuche blinked. "Took what?" Mama Keji leaned in close. "Your peace. You must go to the first river and repeat the same process. This time, you must go at midnight sharp, and after you dip yourself in the river, you must lie down on the riverbank. You must not open your eyes till dawn." That night, at exactly midnight, she arrived at the river and did everything Mama Keji told her. By morning, she returned to her room. Her mother was shocked to see her clean and fresh again, but Amuche said little. She only smiled weakly and locked herself inside, sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. The next day, the sun was high in the sky when it happened. The smell returned, but not to Amuche. It returned to the one who sent it out in the first place. It started with a small twitch under Nkiru's nose. She was in the kitchen, wearing one of Patrick's expensive robes, stirring stew with confidence like she owned the home now. But as she turned around, her nose crinkled. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The air smelled like rot. Like sewage. Like something had died. She sniffed again. The smell was coming from her. She dropped the spoon and ran to the bathroom, slamming the door behind her. She scrubbed her thighs, sprayed perfume, sprayed air freshener, nothing helped. She panicked. Her body was now producing the same foulness she once mocked Amuche for. Her screams echoed through the house. Patrick was in the living room when he heard the loud thud. "Jesus!" he shouted, rushing to the bathroom. There he found her, Nkiru, curled on the tiled floor, shaking, sweating, crying. The smell hit him like a slap. He staggered backward and covered his nose. "What is this?" he shouted. "What's going on?" But Nkiru could no longer hide anything. The pain was too much. Her pride collapsed with her voice. "I'm sorry," she screamed, holding her stomach. "I did it. I did it to Amuche. I cursed her. I couldn't stand that you loved her over me." Patrick froze. His blood ran cold. She kept talking, her words mixing with saliva and tears. "I took her hair from her comb when I came over to your house for our private time together the last time. I went to a native doctor. I made her smell so you would leave her. I thought if she became disgusting, you'd choose me." Patrick couldn't breathe. His mouth opened, but no words came out. She had poisoned his marriage. She had cursed an innocent woman. And he had played right into it. The woman he threw out, insulted, abandoned, was the woman who had done nothing wrong. Suddenly, Patrick's stomach twisted. He ran to the bathroom sink and vomited. The guilt hit him harder than the smell. That evening, he sat in the living room, alone, broken. Nkiru had locked herself inside the guest room, wailing like a demon possessed. The house stank. Not just physically, but spiritually. A stench of betrayal and shame. Patrick couldn't sit still. He paced up and down, then picked up his phone. He scrolled to the number he had once sworn never to call again. Amuche. He hesitated for a second. Then pressed call. Amuche was sitting on a mat outside Mama Keji's compound, helping the old woman pound herbs when the phone rang. She saw Patrick's name and nearly dropped the peso. Her hands went cold. She hadn't heard from him in months, not since the day he kicked her out like a stray dog. She stood up slowly and walked away from the others before answering. His voice came out small. Quiet. Like a child who just lost his way. Amuche, please, come to the house. I beg you. Something has happened. I need to see you. It's urgent. Amuche didn't say a word. She just ended the call. But something in her heart nudged her. Not for Patrick, but for the truth. She arrived at the house just after sunset. The air was thick with tension. The moment she stepped into the compound, the smell slapped her, heavy and wild like it had been trapped inside for days. She covered her nose and walked toward the door slowly. Patrick was standing by the door, waiting, his face pale and ashamed. He didn't speak. He just stepped aside and let her in. Inside, everything looked the same curtains, same sofa, same photos on the wall. But the energy was different. The home felt cursed. Dark. Rotten. Then she saw her. Nkiru, her best friend of 7 years, sitting on the floor in a wrapper, scratching her skin like it was on fire. Her eyes were swollen. Her body trembling. She looked up and saw Amuche, then burst into tears. It was me, she sobbed. I'm sorry. I did it to you. I destroyed your life. I wanted Patrick to hate you. I'm the reason your body turned against you. Amuche didn't blink. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just stood there, calm, cold, composed. Patrick dropped to his knees in front of her. I didn't know, he whispered. I swear I didn't know, Amuche. I thought you were cursed. I thought you were cheating. I listened to gossip. I let pride and lies drive me. But now I see everything. Please. I need your forgiveness. Please come back. But Amuche didn't flinch. She looked down at him. At the man who once swore to protect her but watched her suffer like a dog on the street. She shook her head slowly. You drove me out for something I didn't do, she said, her voice calm like thunder wrapped in silk. You believed a stranger over your own wife. You watched me rot while you brought in another woman to enjoy life with, my friend for that matter. I begged you. I cried, but you shut the door in my face. Now you want to open it because the smell came home to the real source. If a man like you was the last man on earth, I would rather die single. Enjoy your life. She turned around to leave, but Patrick tried to hold her hand. Amuche, please. She stepped away from his touch. I didn't return to forgive you, she said. I came to witness justice. And with that, she walked out the door, leaving Patrick kneeling in a house filled with the very smell he threw her away for. As she stepped outside, the breeze blew gently against her face. It didn't carry shame. It carried peace. Mama Keji stood by the gate waiting. She smiled. It is done, she said. And Amuche. She kept walking. Not back to her old life, but forward into her new one. She had to take one final step to free herself forever. The moon hung high like a watchful eye in the sky as Amuche walked beside Mama Keji down the narrow bush path leading away from Patrick's compound. The silence between them wasn't empty, it was full of meaning. Amuche didn't say a word. Her heart was quiet, not broken, not proud, just still. She had seen the truth with her eyes. She had heard the confession with her ears. The same Patrick who once spat on her dignity now begged for crumbs of forgiveness. But something in her heart had closed. She wasn't angry anymore. She was free. When they reached the foot of the hill behind the village, Mama Keji stopped. The wind blew softly, rustling the leaves around them. Fireflies floated in the air like tiny spirits dancing. Mama Keji looked at Amuche with her wise, wrinkled eyes and touched her shoulder gently. "My daughter," she began, "do you want to know how the curse returned to Nkiru?" Amuche nodded slowly. Mama Keji smiled faintly. "Curses are like arrows. If the one who sends them is innocent, they fly far. But if their hands are dirty, the arrow turns around and comes back." Amuche blinked. "But how?" Mama Keji turned her eyes to the moon. "When you went to that river with the clay pot, something happened that even I didn't expect. You didn't go to fight. You didn't go for revenge. You went with a heart full of pain, not bitterness. And the river, or that river, it doesn't respond to charms. It responds to truth." She paused, her voice softer now. "The water accepted your pain, swallowed it, and began to search for its true owner. It followed the scent of the blood charm Nkiru buried. Followed the hate in her heart. Followed the name she spat in the shrine. And when it found her, it entered her. Everything you felt, she will feel. But worse." Amuche looked down at her palms. They were steady. Her body no longer trembled. The rot had not only left her body, it had left her spirit. "She will cry," Mama Keji continued. "She will scratch. She will beg. But no amount of soap or perfume will cover what the river has marked. And your husband?" She looked deep into Amuche's eyes. "He will suffer too. Not because you cursed him, but because he watched you suffer without lifting a finger. And heaven always remembers." Amuche sat on the rock nearby, her eyes glistening. "So what happens now?" she asked quietly. Mama Keji smiled and sat beside her. "Now, you heal. You rise. You become who you were meant to be before pain tried to bury you." The two women sat in silence, listening to the sounds of night. Crickets chirped. The wind danced. Somewhere far off, a baby cried, and a mother sang a lullaby. Amuche closed her eyes and breathed deeply. The air was clean. The sky was wide. Her heart was whole. And the chapter of shame had finally closed. That's the end of today's story. What are your thoughts? Let's chat in the comments. Thanks for sticking with me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.